Chapter 109. The Song clan and the Wang clan didn't just have a simple political alliance. There were also many other emotional factors involved. The king of Song and Duke Jiao were of the same generation. Back then, the two of them were very good brothers. In that turbulent era, the two of them fought side by side and supported the current Holy Emperor to reach his current position. Because of this, it could be said that Duke Jiao had watched the king of Song grow up. When the king of Song was still around, Duke Jiao had also visited the king of Song's residence, visited him, and hugged him. Putting aside political reasons, deep in his heart, the king of Song still saw Duke Jiao as a father figure, a kind elder. Therefore, even though Duke Jiao didn't express his support for him this time, which made him a little disappointed, the king of Song didn't fly into a rage. The king of Song didn't have much of an impression of Wang Chong. But when he thought about it carefully, he did have some vague impressions. When he was young, he probably hugged him and coaxed him. It was only after he became the king of Song that he became busier and busier that he no longer had the time to pay attention to these juniors. Now that the matters of the imperial court had come to an end, looking at Wang Chong before him brought back memories in the king of Song's heart, as well as some of his feelings as an elder. Wang Chong didn't know what the king of Song was thinking, but Wang Chong could feel that the king of Song was at his most amiable, easygoing, and relaxed. It was as if he was speaking to him as an elder. "Your Highness, I dare not bestow it to you. If it's possible, can this junior ask for someone?" Wang Chong lowered his head and bowed. "Someone?" The king of Song and Lu Ting looked at each other. Both of them were very curious. In particular, the king of Song, who had been troubled by the matter of consort Tai Zhen, suddenly became interested when he heard Wang Chong's words. He temporarily forgot about the troubles in the court. Alone? Women? You must have taken a fancy to that girl. This is human nature. Tell me, no matter who it is, I will personally speak to them for you." The king of Song laughed and seemed to be in a much better mood. Who had never been young? Hearing Wang Chong's words, the king of Song thought that Wang Chong liked a girl from a certain family, which evoked many memories in him. "That's right. Chong Gongzi, feel free to speak. Even if it's the princess, with His Highness the King of Song's help, it's not impossible." Lu Ting stroked his beard and teased. "No. Your Highness has misunderstood." Wang Chong felt awkward. That wasn't the case at all. What in the world were these two thinking? "I wish to save someone, but only Your Highness is capable of doing so. I hope that Your Highness can save him." The king of Song looked at Wang Chong. Seeing that the latter didn't seem to be joking, he frowned and retracted his smile. Then, he said solemnly, "Who do you wish to save? Let me tell you first, a country has its laws, a clan has its rules, and the royal court has its laws. Even though I'm a king of the royal family, I can't do as I please." "I understand. This person is called Zhang Munian. The crime he committed isn't too grave. This is his dossier, Your Highness can take a look." With a lowered head, Wang Chong took out the handwritten dossier he had prepared beforehand and passed it over. The king of Song, Wang Chong, had to meet him no matter what. It wasn't just for the matter of consort Tai Zhen. To Wang Chong, there was someone more important than consort Tai Zhen. That person was Zhang Munian. Ever since his reincarnation, Wang Chong had pondered over the matter for countless days and nights. To change the fate of the empire, there was a person he couldn't do without: Zhang Munian. Zhang Munian? The king of Song frowned, seemingly racking his brains. But eventually, the king of Song realized that he couldn't recall such a person. "Academic Lu, do you have any impression of him?" The king of Song shot him a glance. Lu Ting shook his head. He had never heard of this name before. "That's strange." The king of Song was taken aback. He took the dossier from Wang Chong's hands, flipped it open, and began reading through it. "So, he's an agriculture official. How did he embezzle so much? 20,000 gold taels." The king of Song read through the information on the dossier and frowned. But on the inside, the king of Song heaved a sigh of relief. What he was worried about the most was that Wang Chong wanted to save those who committed murder, rape, betrayed the country, and committed all kinds of heinous crimes. As for embezzlement, it was still a huge crime according to the laws of the empire. But in King Song's eyes, it was only related to money, and it wasn't that big of a deal. At the very least, it wasn't an unpardonable crime. Your Highness, it's true that he embezzled 20,000 gold taels. But I guarantee that there's more to this matter. He definitely didn't embezzle the money for his personal gain. Wang Chong said earnestly. The eyebrows of the King of Song shot up, but he didn't pursue the matter any further. He didn't pay too much attention to such trifling matters. If you can repay the 20,000 gold taels first, I might be able to get the Bureau of Punishments to redeem it. I can help you repay the 20,000 gold taels. Wang Chong was overjoyed. Before the King of Song could finish his words, he immediately interrupted. 20,000 gold taels was a huge figure according to the laws of the empire. But for the current Wang Chong, it was really nothing. Let me finish. I can ask the Bureau of Punishments to reconsider this matter. As long as you repay the 20,000 gold taels he embezzled, this matter can be easily solved. But if you want me to promise you, you have to answer a question of mine. Wang Chong raised his head. This was beyond his expectation. Don't worry. I won't make things too difficult for you. Just tell me why you want to save him. Is this person your friend? The King of Song said with a smile. After confirming that the person Wang Chong wanted him to save was not a heinous criminal, the King of Song was quite open and even joked with him. Actually, I don't know him. Wang Chong hesitated for a moment before deciding to speak the truth. But I can tell your Highness that this person will be of great use to the Tang dynasty in the future. Oh! Upon hearing those words, the King of Song and Lu Ting glanced at one another, and they could see a hint of doubt in each other's eyes. No one understood the meaning behind Wang Chong's words. The two of them couldn't understand why Wang Chong viewed Zhang Munian in such high regard. However, after the incident with Yao Guangyi, no one dared to treat him as a 15-year-old child anymore. I don't know what you intend to do. However, as long as he isn't a heinous criminal, as long as he doesn't go against the laws of the empire, and as long as he doesn't harm the empire, I can promise you anything. I can promise you anything. Wait for my news when you return. I will resolve this matter. The King of Song said. His last few words weren't just directed at Zhang Munian's matter. It could be considered as a warning from the King of Song to this intelligent junior, Wang Chong. Intelligence can be used for righteousness, but when used for evil, it can be used for evil. The Wang clan was a clan of ministers and generals, and this would be of utmost importance in the future. Your Highness, thank you for your teachings. Wang Chong could tell that the King of Song was making use of this opportunity to teach him a lesson, so he bowed in gratitude. All right, it's about time. Academic Lu, let's return. The King of Song said to Lu Ting as he prepared to return home. For some reason, he suddenly felt exhausted after coming to the Four Quarters Embassy. Your Highness, let's go. Lu Ting smiled as he gestured for them to follow. Wait a moment. Seeing that the duo was about to leave, Wang Chong blurted out. HM? The duo turned around and looked at Wang Chong in astonishment. Wang Chong, is there anything else? The King of Song smiled, displaying the benevolence of an elder. Toward a junior like Wang Chong, he was extremely lenient. Wang Chong hesitated. Even though he had already made up his mind to persuade the King of Song on the matter of Consort Taizhen, Wang Chong still found it a little difficult to speak of it. He didn't know where he should start. The matter of Consort Taizhen wasn't a big deal, but it involved the duties and principles of an official. The King of Song had just lectured him that he had to use his intelligence in the right place. If he were to bring up the matter of Consort Taizhen to persuade the King of Song to change his stance, the King of Song and Big Uncle wouldn't know how they would view him. Not only would the good impression he had painstakingly built up vanish into thin air, King Song and his big uncle would even mistake him for a crafty scoundrel. At such a young age, he had already gone astray and lost his principles. This matter wasn't something that he could bring up easily. Wang Chong felt that this matter was even more difficult to resolve than the regional commander's system. What's wrong? While Wang Chong was feeling anxious, he didn't know how he should speak. On the other side, the King of Song and Lu Ting saw that Wang Chong wasn't speaking, and they became even more curious, urging him to speak. Indeed, Chong Gongzi, Is there anything that you can't say in front of the King of Song? Lu Ting said with a smile. The impression that this lad gave him was that he was extremely daring, and the matter with Yao Guangyi left a deep impression on him. For some reason, he was cowering in fear at this moment, not daring to speak a word. This wasn't the Wang clan's Qilin's son in his impression. May I be so bold as to say that Your Highness is vexed over the matter of consort Taizhen? Wang Chong struggled internally for a long time. Gritting his teeth, he finally decided to speak his mind. The moment the words left Wang Chong's mouth, the atmosphere in the vicinity of the fake mountain and bamboo forest changed abruptly. In an instant, it was as though a raging gale had swept across the area, causing the sky to darken. Wang Chong heard a flapping sound. Lowering his head, he saw the King of Song's robe flapping intensely. What are you trying to say? The King of Song asked sternly. Initially, his face was filled with warmth, as though he was a benevolent elder. However, at this moment, his expression changed drastically, and his face turned livid. Even though Lu Ting had always had a good impression of Wang Chong, at this moment, his face warped and he fell silent. In the air, an invisible pressure seemed to be expanding, and all of the pressure was aimed at Wang Chong. Your Highness, you've misunderstood, Wang Chong quickly explained. The King of Song had clearly misunderstood something. Wang Chong, as an elder, I'm warning you today that it is the duty of a subject to uphold ethics. Principles are more important than anything else. If an emperor were to do something wrong, even if the emperor were to reprimand him, demote him, or even exile him, as a subject, I have to remonstrate him. This is because this is more important than my life. His Majesty is wise and valiant. He is the wisest emperor in the history of our Tang dynasty. Under his leadership, our Tang dynasty has actively expanded. Now, from Jiaozhi in the south, to Yin Mountain in the north, to the East Sea in the east, and to the Pamir Mountains in the west, all belong to our Tang dynasty. The land area is unprecedentedly vast, and this is an unprecedented flourishing era in the history of the Central Plains. No other emperor can compare to it. Be it Emperor Qin or Emperor Wu of Han, they are all the same. Our Tang dynasty is the most prosperous of all dynasties in terms of both political and martial arts. His Majesty is a true emperor throughout the ages. Right now, he is muddle-headed, indulging in women without realizing it. This has affected the entire court of the Tang dynasty. His Majesty doesn't know it, but as subjects, we have to remonstrate him. No matter what, we cannot allow any stain to appear on His Majesty's reputation as an emperor throughout the ages. Chapter 110. These words were the King of Song's admonition to Wang Chong. At the same time, they were also the King of Song's heartfelt words. It wasn't easy for the Tang dynasty to reach its current height, and it wasn't easy for the Central Plains to reach its current height. It took several thousand years for such a great emperor to appear in the Central Plains. As for the current holy emperor, the King of Song respected him from the bottom of his heart. This was precisely the reason why he couldn't tolerate any blemish on the holy emperor's name. For a ruler to take the wife of a subject, this was against the moral principles. For a father to take the wife of his son, this was against the moral principles. It would be a huge stain on any monarch's reputation if they did something that went against the rules and ethics. The current holy emperor was a man of bold vision and wisdom. It wasn't easy for the Tang dynasty to reach its current height. Thus, the King of Song couldn't allow such a thing to happen to the current holy emperor. If anyone dared to oppose him, if anyone dared to support this matter, they would be his enemy. If Wang Chong dared to dissuade or oppose him on this matter, then the King of Song would truly have misjudged him. For such a person, the more capable and talented he was, the greater the harm he would bring to the royal court. If Wang Chong really wanted to dissuade him, then as long as he was still in the royal court, he would never allow Wang Chong to stand out in the royal court. Even if Wang Chong was the descendant of Duke Jiao, the son of Wang Gung. The bamboo forest around the fake mountain rustled, but the atmosphere was extremely heavy. Even Lu Ting was silent by the side, his expression extremely solemn. Wang Chong sighed deeply in his heart. He knew that no matter what he said at this moment, as long as he opened his mouth, it would be wrong. However, he couldn't ignore the consort Taizhen incident. The impact of this matter was too great. This was not only because the king of Song was the Wang family's backer, but also because big uncle Wang Zhen would be implicated in this matter. More importantly, Wang Chong understood that if he wanted to fulfill his mission and change the fate of the Central Plains and the Tang dynasty, the king of Song was an indispensable part of it. As the saying goes, nothing is perfect and no one is perfect. The king of Song might have some shortcomings, but he was the most proactive person in the imperial court and the strongest supporter of the military. Regardless of whether it was King Qi or the Yao clan, neither of them possessed such foresight. Their vision was too limited, and they would only stare at the inside. The Yao family was good at scheming, and they were best at fighting among themselves. What King Qi wanted was power. If the king of Song were to fall, they would be in charge of the overall situation. For the Tang dynasty, it would definitely be a disaster rather than a blessing. In the future catastrophe, the imperial court needed someone like the king of Song, the Tang dynasty needed someone like the king of Song, the Central Plains needed someone like the king of Song, and so did Wang Chong. Only with a powerful warmonger like the king of Song supporting him in the imperial court would he be able to carry out his plans without any worries. Therefore, no matter what, the king of Song couldn't fall. Be it for official or personal reasons, for the Tang dynasty or for the Wang family, Wang Chong couldn't allow him to fall. Your Highness. Wang Chong lowered his head and spoke, finding it abnormally difficult to say these two words. Wang Chong doesn't mean to support or oppose Your Highness. However, regarding the matter of consort Taizhen, why don't Your Highness ask Prince Shou? Wang. Silence. Unparalleled silence. Upon hearing the name Prince Shou, both the king of Song and Lu Ting revealed astonished expressions. Prince Shou. Prince Shou. The two had thought of everything, but never in their wildest dreams did they expect Wang Chong to mention Prince Shou. Without a doubt, King Shou was the person at the center of the consort Taizhen storm. However, regardless of whether it was King Song, Lu Ting, King Qi, the Yao clan, or the officials of the royal court, the only person that no one had expected was King Shou. A father takes his son's wife, and a lord takes his subject's wife. In this matter, the most awkward and hurt one was undoubtedly Prince Shou, Li Mao. If the emperor wants the subject to die, the subject has no choice but to die. If the emperor's father wants to take his son's wife, what can this son do? Prince Shou had already been hurt once, and no one wanted him to be hurt a second time. Therefore, be it the king of Song, King Qi, or the officials in the imperial court, no one wanted to visit Prince Shou and ask for his opinion on this matter. The entire imperial court is involved in the matter of consort Taizhen. Wang Chong isn't trying to express anything, but why didn't Your Highness ask Prince Shou first before making a decision? Wang Chong said with his head lowered. Wang Chong felt that there were too many questions regarding this matter back then. Why would a wise and astute emperor who spent the first half of his life suddenly become so lustful toward women, to the point of disregarding half of the officials in the imperial court and demoting a prince of the imperial family and many important officials in the imperial court? If this person was a fatuous emperor, then so be it. However, he was publicly acknowledged as a wise emperor. However, in the matter of consort Taizhen, his actions were definitely not that of a wise emperor. Just like what the king of Song had said in his previous life, this was a huge stain on his reputation. The disparity between before and after was too great, and they didn't seem like the same person at all. Not only so, consort Taizhen was known as the #1 beauty of the Tang dynasty. She had a face that could captivate even the birds and beasts, as well as a beauty that outshone the moon. Regardless of which time-space she was in, she was publicly acknowledged as a beauty throughout the ages. Wang Chong had never met consort Taizhen before, so he didn't know what she looked like. However, Wang Chong had met Prince Shou, Li Mao. In his previous life, Wang Chong was a famous hedonistic son of a wealthy family in the capital. He was idle, ignorant, and incompetent. After the incident of consort Taizhen, Wang Chong had once accidentally met Prince Shou, Li Mao. At that time, Prince Shou's face was glowing, and he was full of smiles. No matter how he looked at it, he didn't look like someone who had just lost his true love and had his wife snatched away by his father. Even though it was only for an instant, Prince Shou sensed something and immediately dashed into the courtyard, never to appear again. However, that glimpse left a deep impression on Wang Chong. This was the first time that Wang Chong had met Prince Shou, and it was also the only time in his life. Now that Wang Chong had reincarnated and the incident of Consort Taizhen happened once again, Wang Chong subconsciously recalled that encounter. He recalled the glowing and smiling Prince Shou. Wang Chong had a feeling that the matter of Consort Taizhen wasn't as simple as it seemed on the surface. "Is this what you want to say?" The King of Song stared at Wang Chong said, and a glint flickered in his eyes. It was impossible to tell what he was thinking. "Yes." Wang Chong clenched his teeth and said solemnly. He had wanted to say more and, if possible, persuade the King of Song to change his mind. However, Wang Chong knew that going too far was as bad as falling short. Given his current relationship with the King of Song, this was the most he could say. "I understand." The King of Song's expression became much better, and he wasn't as stern as before. "It's hard to explain the matters of the royal court in a few words. It's good that you are concerned about the matters of the royal court. However, there are many things that you will only understand after you grow up." After saying this, the King of Song left with Lu Ting. A moment later, the carriage started moving. Amidst the rumbling sounds, the carriage quickly left the Four Quarters Embassy and headed east. Sigh. Looking at the departing figure of the carriage, Wang Chong sighed deeply in his heart. Wang Chong knew that his words were in vain this time. The King of Song didn't listen to him. However, Wang Chong wasn't surprised by this outcome. At this moment, given the King of Song's state of mind, if he could really listen to the opinions of a teenager like him, he wouldn't be the King of Song. In fact, the King of Song's reaction was already beyond his expectations for the King of Song to say those words after hearing his words. But even so, Wang Chong didn't feel discouraged. Even though the King of Song didn't listen to his words, Wang Chong knew that when that matter happened in the near future, the King of Song probably wouldn't think so anymore. "No matter what, I've already done all that I can. The rest is up to the will of the heavens," Wang Chong thought. Wang Chong wasn't worried about his big uncle, and he didn't intend to persuade him either. His big uncle and the King of Song had formed an alliance. If he could persuade the King of Song, he would surely be able to persuade his big uncle too. On the other hand, if he couldn't persuade the King of Song, with the King of Song taking the lead, it would be impossible to persuade his big uncle. Because that would be equivalent to asking his big uncle to betray the King of Song. Moreover, Wang Chong knew that if his big uncle really changed his mind, it might not be a good thing. Turning around, Wang Chong strode in the direction of the erudite pavilion. "Your Highness, should we pay a visit to King Shou?" At the same time, unknown to Wang Chong, another conversation was going on in the King of Song's carriage. "You are thinking of..." In the carriage, the King of Song raised an eyebrow and looked at Lu Ting in surprise. Even though Wang Chong had done some shocking things that didn't match his age, he was still a 15-year-old child. The King of Song didn't expect Lu Ting to actually listen to Wang Chong's words. That child's words aren't unreasonable. Besides, we won't lose anything by meeting King Shou, Lu Ting said. Even though Lu Ting didn't think that they should give in on the matter of Consort Taizhen, that child didn't seem to be speaking without thinking either. The King of Song was silent, seemingly considering the feasibility of Lu Ting's words. "Forget it." The King of Song pondered for a moment, but still shook his head. The matter of Consort Taizhen is also something that King Shou can't mention. He has already been hurt once in this matter. If we do this again, it will be equivalent to opening his scars and sprinkling salt on them. Moreover, ever since this matter happened, King Shou has been in seclusion. Even if he wants to meet him, it won't be easy. It's better not to trouble him with this matter. The King of Song rejected Lu Ting's suggestion. Lu Ting sighed inwardly, knowing that the King of Song was still unwilling to touch King Shou's scars. It was true that King Shou was in seclusion and refused visitors, but with the identity of the King of Song's imperial uncle, if he insisted on meeting King Shou, how could he not meet him? The King of Song just didn't want to meet him. "Let's abide by your Highness's decree." Chapter 111. With the departure of the king of Song, the officials, and the old subordinates of the old master, the Four Quarters embassy finally quietened down. But by this time, the sky had already darkened. In previous birthdays, the family would have already started eating before anyone arrived. But this time, because there were too many people, it only ended at 5. Brat, I'll forget about it this time. It's already too late. Remember to hurry over when second sister calls for you. Before leaving, second sister entered the carriage and raised her fist threateningly. I understand. Do you think that I would dare to disobey second sister's orders? Wang Chong smiled. Only then did Wang Zhuyan drop the matter. Just like how they came, the family boarded their own carriages and left in the direction they came from. Parting the curtains, Wang Chong took a final glance at the Four Quarters embassy behind him. Under the night sky, the Four Quarters embassy was shrouded in darkness, and only a few flickering lights could be seen. Wang Chong was well aware that a storm would soon sweep through the entire imperial court. Regardless of whether it was the regional commander's system or the consort Taijin incident, the storm they stirred was sufficient to destabilize the royal court of the Tang dynasty for a very long period of time. However, to Wang Chong, all of this had nothing to do with him. He had already done all he could. What happened next wasn't something a child like him could resolve. It's about time for me to return and settle my matters, Wang Chong thought. Looking at the Four Quarters embassy in the darkness behind him, he felt a tinge of regret. The Holy Emperor would definitely appear for grandfather's birthday. However, it was a pity that Wang Chong never had the chance to meet him. Even though the current sage emperor usually appeared in the day, he would only appear in the Four Quarters embassy on the day of his grandfather's birthday. Only at night would the sage emperor appear in the Four Quarters embassy after the officials had left. Thus, after so many years, Wang Chong had never met the Holy Emperor. This was one of his regrets. Let's go, child. His mother's voice sounded by his side. Wang Chong was dazed for a moment before he recovered. Go. A whip cracked outside the carriage, and it slowly headed towards the Wang family. The east side of the Four Quarters embassy was separated by a tall wall. While the erudite pavilion was bustling with activity, the west side of the courtyard wall was deathly silent. There wasn't even a bit of light. The people of the Wang clan have all left. In the darkness, an old voice suddenly came, as if he had been listening to something. Yes, father, it's all gone. A middle-aged man's voice came from the darkness. It sounded very respectful. The sound of flint came from the darkness. Then, a faint flame lit up, and an ordinary oil lamp lit up in the room. The grease gradually outlined the face of a middle-aged man. This was a dignified face. With a single glance, one could tell that he held a high position and possessed extraordinary status. However, his eyes were filled with deep doubt, as if he was deeply troubled by something. If Wang Chong was here, he would definitely be shocked. Because this person was none other than the nemesis of the Wang clan, the one who schemed against Wang Chong's father, Yao Guangyi. In the battle by the borders, Yao Guangyi's cleverness had backfired, and he became the laughingstock of the entire capital. From then on, Yao Guangyi lived in seclusion, reflecting on his mistakes. However, on Duke Jiu's birthday, Yao Guangyi didn't stay in the Yao residence. Instead, he stayed in the room beside the Wang clan old master's erudite pavilion. For such a person to appear in the Four Quarters embassy without the Wang clan knowing about it, this was a huge mistake. If the Wang clan knew that Yao Guangyi had been listening to them for an entire day, they would probably be shocked. Father, if I were to listen here for an entire day, I would know who in the Wang clan schemed against me. Forgive me for my foolishness, but I beseech Lord Father to enlighten me. Yao Guangyi lowered his head respectfully, as though he was seeking guidance from his father. The battle by the borders had always been a huge knot in his heart. To think that he had always prided himself on his intelligence, yet he had lost to the Wang clan in his forte. Without a doubt, this was a huge blow to him. It would have been fine if that was all. However, Yao Guangyi didn't even know how he lost or who he lost to. This was something that the prideful Yao Guangyi couldn't accept. If he didn't resolve this problem, Yao Guangyi would never be able to pull himself together. Pooh! There was no response from the room. The light from the oil lamp vaguely reflected the image of a white-skinned elder. This elder's hair and beard were all white, and his face was covered in wrinkles. Upon hearing Yao Guangyi's words, he only smiled faintly. Holding a thin stick, he lightly fiddled with the wick of the oil lamp. If one didn't know better, it would be hard to believe that this ordinary-looking elder fiddling with the wick of the oil lamp was another influential figure in the Tang dynasty, Yao Chong, Yao Yuanji, the Yao clan's old master Yao. Unlike the Wang clan's old master Wang Jiuling, Yao Chong had never led an army beyond the Great Wall and participated in any earth-shattering battles. Similarly, he had never been embroiled in any turmoil in the royal court, nor had he performed any heroic feats. Naturally, he didn't have any contributions to the throne. However, it was precisely this Yao Chong, Yao Yuanji, who had become an influential figure in the Tang dynasty, standing on equal footing with the Wang clan's old master Wang. In the royal court, his standing was extraordinary, and he was favored by the Holy Emperor. On top of that, he occupied a seat in the most illustrious and unique four-quarters embassy of the Tang dynasty. The Yao clan's old master Yao didn't rely on martial prowess to reach his current position. "Did you hear the birthday greetings in the morning?" Old Master Yao asked with a smile, bringing up an unimportant matter. "I did." Yao Guangyi was taken aback, but he quickly replied. He knew that his father wouldn't speak of unimportant matters. "How did it feel?" Old Master Yao smiled. Retracting the needle that was fiddling with the wick of the oil lamp, he lightly blew on it, just like an ordinary old man. Lively, illustrious, and prosperous. If it's father's birthday, it won't pale in comparison. Yao Guangyi added. Old Master Yao narrowed his eyes and waved his hands with a smile. At his level of standing, he didn't need to listen to flattery anymore. "What about now?" Old Master Yao narrowed his eyes and asked once more. As he spoke, he placed the needle back into the box on the table and placed it neatly. Taking a closer look, one could see that there was more than one needle in the box. Every single needle had a black tip, and they were neatly stacked in the wooden box. Now, quiet, serene, and cold. Yao Guangyi hesitated for a moment before replying. He still didn't understand what his father was trying to say. Guangyi, you better remember this. Life is like day and night. Just a moment ago, you might be famous and honorable, but in the next moment, you might end up like you are now, declining from the peak of your power, with no one showing any interest in you. This is the true portrayal of our clan of generals and ministers. Old Master Yao said. At the end of his words, he stared at Yao Guangyi with an indescribable gaze. Yao Guangyi was shocked. He didn't expect that the old master wanted him to listen to the Wang clan's day and night just to tell him this. In that instant, Yao Guangyi felt as though he had returned to his younger days, listening respectfully to the old master's teachings. Guangyi, do you know why you lost to the Wang clan by the borders? Do you still think that it was a coincidence? You are too conceited. It isn't easy for a clan to rise to its current position, and it takes several generations to achieve. But to destroy it, it only takes a day. It's precisely because I understand that life is fickle and that it is easy to gain and easy to lose. Thus, I have always been cautious, not daring to be careless. Child, this is the last lesson I want to teach you. Be careful. Old Master Yao said faintly. His eyes stared at Yao Guangyi, as though looking into the depths of the latter's soul. Shua. Yao Guangyi was taken aback and cold sweat dripped down his back. In that instant he suddenly felt his father's state of mind. Father, I have learned my lesson. Yao Guangyi stood up and bowed respectfully. It wasn't easy for a clan to rise up. Knowing this, one had to be even more cautious. After being under his father's protection for so long, Yao Guangyi had already forgotten the feeling of being covered in thin ice. He had also forgotten that the reason why he could make a mistake without being punished was because of the old master's existence. It was precisely because of the old master's protection that he was able to sit in his current position. For so many years, he had always thought that he was the head of the Yao clan. But in reality, the true head of the Yao clan had always been his father. Looking at Yao Guangyi's cold sweat dripping down his back, old Master Yao finally nodded his head. It was a true awakening for him to understand the feeling of being covered in thin ice. There was no such thing as a perfect plan in the world. The reason why he was able to remain standing for so many years was because of the words covered in thin ice. The fact that you can understand this means that you can still be saved. As for the identity of the Wang clan that you wish to know, you will find out soon. As though responding to old Master Yao's words, a series of footsteps sounded from outside. A moment later, a fully armored commander of the Imperial Army walked in from outside. Paying respects to Duke Yao. The Imperial Army commander was travel-worn. Upon entering the room, he immediately kneeled down without raising his head. Upon seeing the Imperial Army commander before him, Yao Guangyi was astonished. The Imperial Army members in the Four Quarters Embassy were handpicked by the Holy Emperor, and every single one of them was loyal and reliable. Yet, the old master was still able to plant a spy among them. Old Master Yao smiled but didn't reply. He only looked at the Imperial Army commander on the ground. Today is Duke Jiu's birthday banquet. Tell me everything you saw. Yes. With his head lowered, the Imperial Army commander swiftly recounted what he saw in the day. All right. Old Master Yao waved his hands, and the latter quickly rushed over. Even Yao Guangyi wasn't able to see his face clearly. The other party seemed to be intentionally concealing his face. Other than Old Master Yao, even Yao Guangyi wasn't willing to let him see his face. Did you hear anything? Old Master Yao turned to look at Yao Guangyi. Pardon my foolishness, but I really can't hear anything. Yao Guangyi lifted his head with a confused expression. He listened carefully. What the Imperial Army commander said were all extremely trivial matters, such as who came to the Four Quarters Embassy, what gifts they brought, who the Wang clan old master met, when did someone leave, who seemed intimate with someone. It was all superficial information. As for the specifics, there was nothing at all. Honestly speaking, to Yao Guangyi, this was completely useless information. Do you still not understand? That's right. Even I didn't expect that the person who schemed against you would be a 15-year-old child. Yao Guangyi shook his head. There was an indescribable emotion in his eyes. What child? Yao Guangyi widened his eyes in disbelief as he stared at his father. Tell me, who was the last person the king of Song, Li Qingqi, met? Wang Gingji's third son, Wang Chong. That's him. This child is the one you're looking for. Old Master Yao said slowly. His eyes seemed to be able to see through everything. Boom. As though a bolt of lightning flashing across his mind, Yao Guangyi widened his eyes in shock. Chapter 112. Even a magnitude 12 tsunami couldn't describe the shock in Yao Guangyi's heart. Being schemed against by the boarders was no different from a clown. Yao Guangyi had always thought that the Wang clan had received the help of an expert who saw through his plans. Because of this expert, Yao Guangyi couldn't eat or sleep in peace. One shouldn't be afraid of meeting a formidable opponent, but of not knowing who his opponent was. Thus, before finding this person, Yao Guangyi couldn't pull himself together. This was a knot in his heart. If he didn't resolve this problem, he would never be able to return to his previous self. Just that, no matter how smart Yao Guangyi was, he couldn't have imagined that his opponent, the incomparably formidable expert, in his heart, was a teenage child of the Wang clan, an unassuming profligate scion. How could an influential official of the royal court, Yao Guangyi, who prided himself on his intelligence, accept this? Father, how can you be so sure that the child is the one who schemed against me? Yao Guangyi asked. Under normal circumstances, he wouldn't dare to doubt his father's words. However, this matter was simply too important to him. If he didn't resolve this knot in his heart, he would always be brooding over it. You still don't get it? Old Master Yao kept the wooden box on the table into his drawer. His expression was calm, as though he was talking about an insignificant matter that he already knew the answer to. Such a huge incident happened at the borders with the Wang clan, and the Wang clan produced a formidable expert. Do you think that the king of Song can sit still? Isn't he going to take a look? But what if he already knew about it? Yao Guangyi asked. Old Master Yao shook his head. If it was the Yao Guangyi of the past, he would have already understood the situation upon hearing his words. However, the incident at the borders had dealt a blow to his confidence, and he no longer seemed like the wise general he used to be. Think about it carefully. If the Wang clan really has a powerful expert, if the king of Song really knew about it beforehand, do you think that your plan with King Qi would succeed? Do you think that you can still rope in so many people? Hong. Old Master Yao's voice was neither loud nor soft, and he spoke in a light and breezy manner. But in Yao Guangyi's ears, it was as if he had been enlightened. In that instant, it was as if there were countless rays of light and countless thoughts flashed through his mind. In the unseen world, many things that he couldn't understand before suddenly seemed to be made clear. So, the last person to see the King of Song during Duke Jiu's birthday banquet is the person we are looking for. Old Master Yao nodded his head in relief. Old Master Yao nodded his head in relief. Li Qingqi can be considered an intelligent person. Unfortunately, his cleverness is his own downfall. He wanted to protect that child, but he didn't know that he was the one who let us know who was behind this. Yao Guangyi sat there in a daze, not moving an inch. His eyes were cloudy, filled with confusion, fear, and confusion. But slowly, like a person who had fallen into a whirlpool, he slowly struggled to the surface, and his eyes slowly became clear. Moreover, there was something new struggling out from the bottom of his heart. The confused Yao Guangyi slowly disappeared, and a confident and dignified Yao Guangyi slowly appeared in the room. I didn't expect it, I really didn't expect it. Back at the vast crane pavilion, I thought that it was just a coincidence. I didn't expect that it's actually him. Yao Guangyi said, "I can't believe it," a few times in succession. This matter really gave him too big of a surprise. Father, the Wang clan has never been known for its intelligence. Now that the Wang clan has produced this brat, he even schemed against me. This is definitely not a good thing. So, are you going to get rid of him? Old Master Yao turned around and said unhurriedly. Yao Guangyi was stunned. According to him, such a threatening existence had to be eliminated. Moreover, the sooner, the better. However, from what the old man said, it seemed like he didn't agree with him doing this. Father, you mean to keep him alive for now? Yao Guangyi was truly surprised. It's not a matter of staying or not. Old Master Yao stared deeply at Yao Guangyi. There seemed to be something else in his eyes. If you want to kill that child, even if the Wang clan seeks vengeance, even if Wang Bo pursues the matter, even if the Holy Emperor blames you, I can bear all of it for you. However, are you sure that you want to do this? The room was silent. Only the crackling of the oil lamp could be heard. Yao Guangyi sat there in a daze and fell into deep thought. Old Master Yao shook his head. The onlookers seized the situation clearly. This child still hadn't recovered from that defeat. Do you think that the reason why our Yao clan is where it is today is through massacring our opponents? If we massacred every single one of them, what difference is there between us and those general clans? Old Master Yao said casually. Hearing these words, Yao Guangyi's body trembled. Not knowing what he was thinking, a layer of cold sweat appeared on his forehead. You still don't understand. The crux of this matter isn't that child but you. Do you know why you want to kill him? Because you are fearful. Old Master Yao narrowed his eyes. However, his gaze wasn't on Yao Guangyi. Instead, it was on the flickering oil lamp. Our Yao clan has been through many trials and tribulations, and there are many people more formidable than that child. Is Zhou Chang weaker than him? Is Liu weaker than him? Is Wang Gengji weaker than him? Out of so many people, we didn't kill any of them. But when we met this child, you wanted to kill him because you are afraid. Fearful. And your opponent is just a child. Yao Guangyi's forehead was drenched in cold sweat. With every sentence that old Master Yao spoke, a layer of cold sweat would appear on his forehead. When he heard the last sentence, Yao Guangyi's clothes were already drenched. Meeting an opponent isn't scary. Our Yao clan has never been afraid of meeting an opponent. If we really meet him, we just have to use schemes to defeat him. What we are afraid of is that you will lose the courage to use schemes to defeat him. Guangyi, think carefully. Do you really want to get rid of that child? The room was silent. A long while later, a long sigh could be heard. Father, I was wrong. It's not too late for you to understand. That child of the Wang clan must be gotten rid of, but not in this manner. Go, this consort Taijin incident is your best opportunity. Use your wisdom to help the king of Qi regain his trust. After saying these words, old Master Yao closed his eyes. Yes, father. Yao Guangyi bowed and slowly and respectfully retreated out of the room. When he came, he was filled with worries. But when he left, it was as though a heavy burden had been lifted off his shoulders. Wang Chong knew that regardless of whether it was the consort Taijin incident or the regional commander's incident, it wasn't something that could be resolved within a short period of time. The turmoil in the royal court was bound to last for a very long time. However, all of this had nothing to do with him. After paying his respects to his grandfather, Wang Chong's life quickly returned to normal. Every day he would head to the Ghost Tree district to play chess before practicing his martial arts. His life was rather regular. As for the second 7-shi long saber, the design of the thick, narrow, and thick-backed Wuzi steel saber, it had already been completed. Wang Chong had entrusted the initial work to Tuoba Geyuan. As for the crucial quenching and tempering of the saber, Wang Chong would handle it personally when the time came. Origin Energy Tier 6. Perhaps it's time for me to choose some cultivation techniques that can boost my strength. While cultivating alone near the fake mountain in the garden, a thought suddenly flashed across Wang Chong's mind. It was Su Xian of the Su clan. Even though he had lost, Su Xian's fragrant elephant technique had left a deep impression on him. The Su clan was a duke of the Tang dynasty, and the martial arts bestowed upon them by the Holy Emperor back then was naturally extraordinary. Compared to the cultivation techniques of many general clans, the fragrant elephant technique was definitely one of the top-notch cultivation techniques that could boost one's strength. It was due to this cultivation technique that Su Xian was able to stand out among his peers in the capital. If he didn't use the Herculean punch technique and just relied on pure strength, Wang Chong might not be a match for Su Xian. Upon reaching Origin Energy Tier 6, one would be in a completely different world. Speed, strength, and dexterity, these were three different paths. Most people would subconsciously choose cultivation techniques that boosted their strength, and Wang Chong was no exception. However, it wasn't because Wang Chong chose the strength-type path for himself. Rather, it was because Wang Chong had no other choice. Origin Energy Tier 6 could only choose cultivation techniques that boosted one's strength. Wang Chong's mind whirred, and soon, he went through the cultivation techniques from his previous life. Wang Chong first filtered out the ordinary strength-type cultivation techniques. To Wang Chong, strength-type cultivation techniques had to at least reach the level of fragrant elephant technique, and it would be best if he could surpass it. I got it. A thought flashed across Wang Chong's mind, and he suddenly recalled an ultimate art. To Wang Chong, who eventually became the Grand Marshal of the Central Plains, this ultimate art wasn't much of a formidable technique. However, in the Origin Energy realm, this was definitely the fastest technique to boost one's strength. Might of the Barbaric God. This was the result of everyone's brainstorming. It was the fastest, strongest, and best cultivation technique to increase a cultivator's strength. It was also the most efficient. Back then, they were prepared to promote it among the warriors so as to allow the human warriors to stand against the otherworldly invaders and suppress them completely. If they succeeded, they might even be able to turn the tides of the war, allowing the otherworldly invaders to come from the other side. Due to this unexpected success, the generals of the Central Plains, including the elders, were excited for a very long time. But in the end, this plan was put on hold. The reason was simple. Even though Might of the Barbaric God was powerful and could boost one's strength by leaps and bounds, there was a huge flaw in it. One had to have a tiger bone root bone in order to cultivate Might of the Barbaric God. This was due to the fact that most warriors weren't suited for it. Those who were truly suited for it were few and far between. On the other hand, raising one's root bone was an extremely long and arduous process. In the end, the entire plan failed. Chapter 113. I have already reached Origin Energy Tier 6, and my Root Bone has reached Panther Bone 3 Dan Pinnacle. However, it won't be easy for me to advance from Panther Bone 3 Dan to Tiger Bone Realm. Wang Chong thought. In the world of martial arts, there were many cultivation techniques that had a high requirement on one's root bone. The more formidable a cultivation technique was, the higher the requirement on one's root bone. If one's root bone wasn't up to par, it would be impossible for one to cultivate it. Given Wang Chong's current cultivation realm, it was impossible for him to reach the level of Tiger Bone. It's not impossible to raise my root bone to Tiger Bone. Standing near the fake mountain, Wang Chong's mind whirred. There were things that could raise one's root bone within a short period of time, and the Su clan's bone forging pill was one of them. Other than that, Wang Chong also knew of some methods to raise one's root bone. However, there weren't many that were suitable for him and could be put to practical use. I've got it. A thought flashed across Wang Chong's mind, and he suddenly recalled something. In the Central Plains, if one were to talk about the places with the most pills, it would undoubtedly be the royal palace and the various kings' residences. Especially in the imperial palace, there was a group of imperial alchemists who specialized in refining pills for the sacred emperor, the princes and princesses, as well as the concubines and concubines of the imperial court. There was a huge number of these alchemists, and they were strictly controlled by the royal family. The pills they forged would flow into the royal treasury and become the source of pills bestowed to the imperial army, kings, and officials. Every single one of these pills was strictly controlled, and they were even labeled with a serial number. Thus, it was rare for one to obtain them in the outside world. The other place where the pills were forged was the residences of the various kings. Every single king had a group of alchemists who forged pills for them. Some of these alchemists had come to the king's side, and some were bestowed by the royal family. The number of alchemists couldn't be compared to that of the royal family. Usually, there would only be a few of them, a dozen of them, or at most 20 of them. To the princes, these people were undoubtedly important strategic resources. Therefore, every prince consort took their alchemist team very seriously. They wouldn't easily let outsiders come into contact with them, let alone let their pills get out. Because of these exclusive alchemists of the imperial palace, almost every imperial prince was a top-notch expert. Whether it was the king of Song or king of Qi, the consumption of every single prince of the imperial family was a huge hole. In addition, the prince's mansion also had to bestow gifts to the guards, attendants, children, advisors. Therefore, the pills of any prince of the imperial family were far from enough. Therefore, although the imperial palace and the various kings' mansions had the most elixirs in storage, none of the elixirs were leaked out. To outsiders, the pills from these two places were unattainable and out of reach. However, Wang Chong knew of a secret way to obtain the pills that were circulating in those places. This was something that happened in his previous life. Back then, the great upheaval had destroyed the entire Central Plains. Due to the calamity, people from all walks of life were gathered together. Regardless of whether it was the lofty royal family, the boorish roving bandits, or the honest peasants. In a disaster, everyone was equal. In the face of death, everyone will become afraid. Due to fear, many things that one normally wouldn't talk about were no longer taboo. Instead, they became a way to release one's stress and fear. It was there that Wang Chong met a distressed alchemist. It was from him that Wang Chong learned that there was a secret faction among the alchemists of the royal family and the king's mansions. They would make false reports, conceal the pills they had forged, and then secretly sell them outside the royal family and the king's mansions in order to profit from it. This kind of private behavior by the imperial family and the royal family's alchemists had actually happened in every dynasty, and the current dynasty was no exception. But even so, this didn't mean that outsiders could easily buy their pills or join this small group. Alchemists concealing the number of pills or making false reports, whether it was in the imperial palace or the various kings' mansions, were strictly prohibited. In order to serve as a warning to others, they would generally be severely punished. As this was a matter of life and death, the alchemist kept this matter a secret. Furthermore, it was extremely secretive, making it difficult for outsiders to join their faction. If not for that great upheaval, it would have been impossible for someone like Wang Chong to know of the existence of the alchemist faction. Falling Jade Pavilion. Wang Chong quickly recalled the place that the alchemist told him about. It was a secret residence that the alchemist bought. Even though it looked ordinary on the surface, it was actually a secret gathering point for the alchemist faction. There were many such gathering points in the capital. Every single gathering point had an alchemist in charge of it. If a problem were to arise in a gathering point, they would quickly abandon it so as to protect the entire alchemist faction. The reason why Wang Chong remembered it was because there was a unique alchemist in the Falling Jade Pavilion. If Wang Chong wanted to join the faction and purchase pills, this alchemist was his only chance. Let's go take a look. With a thought, Wang Chong summoned Xianxia and Meng Long, boarded a carriage, and headed for the Falling Jade Pavilion. The Falling Jade Pavilion wasn't a tavern or a tea house. Rather, it was a private residence located at the edge of the capital, and it stood amidst the many single-story houses. How deserted! Xianxia and Wang Chong popped their heads out of the carriage to look at the house not too far away. The vermilion gate and the mottled walls were tightly shut, and there wasn't the slightest sound of dogs barking. It seemed as though it had been abandoned for a very long time. Young master, are you certain that this is the place? It doesn't seem like there's anyone here. Xianxia turned to look at his young master and asked. The surroundings of the residence were shabby, and it gave off a bad vibe. Don't worry, this is the place. Wang Chong recalled the anecdotes that the alchemist told him back then. Opening his eyes, he looked at the mottled plaque on the entrance of the residence with the words Falling Jade Pavilion written on it and nodded his head seriously. It was naturally impossible for an alchemist to steal and sell pills from the imperial palace and king residences in broad daylight. This residence seemed deserted, but it was in line with the style of an alchemist. I wonder if there's anyone in this residence? Wang Chong thought. The alchemists in the royal palace and the king's residences were extremely busy, and there was no rest to speak of in the midst of pill forging. Thus, these strongholds were truly deserted most of the time. Only when there was a need every month would the alchemist appear here to carry out all sorts of transactions or exchanges. Falling Jade Pavilion was definitely the place, but whether there was anyone inside or not, and whether this was the time for them to carry out their transactions or meet up, Wang Chong couldn't be too sure. Pang! Just as he was hesitating, the door suddenly opened. 5 figures lowered their heads and subconsciously covered their faces as they walked out quickly from inside. Even from afar, the 3 of them could smell the strong scent of pills on the 5 figures. It's the alchemist. The same thought flashed through the minds of the 3 of them. Young master, which one? Xianxia and Meng Long turned to look at Wang Chong. Wang Chong said that he wanted them to follow an alchemist, but there were 5 of them here, and even if each of them took one, it would still be far from enough. Wang Chong also frowned anxiously. These people were very alert. As they walked, they subconsciously sized up their surroundings, harboring a strong sense of vigilance. Moreover, they were walking very fast, giving off the feeling that they were in a hurry and were in a hurry. If he didn't find the person in his memory soon, these people would probably leave. Which one? Which one? Wang Chong's mind was in turmoil. Alchemists were all extremely wary of one another. Under normal circumstances, no matter what methods one used, they would never accept one. In fact, it would be hard for one to even get close to them. The moment one felt that something was amiss, they might make use of the might of the king's estate or the royal palace to deal with one. This was something that the alchemist reminded him time and time again. The moment one was noticed by an alchemist or sensed danger, that person would immediately report it to the entire alchemist society. At that time, it would no longer be this secret alchemist society dealing with one. Instead, it would be all the alchemists in the royal palace and the king's mansions dealing with one. If the royal family or the royal family knew that someone was trying to harm their royal alchemist or the alchemist in the king's mansion, then there would be a series of troubles. It would be a small matter if the guards came out. Next, it would be the princes and princesses, or the young princes and princesses of the king's mansions. Once an alchemist was involved, it would be no small matter. Therefore, if Wang Chong wanted to get in touch with the alchemist in the royal palace and king's mansions, he wouldn't have much of a chance. The 5 alchemists walked very quickly. Just as Wang Chong was hesitating, they had almost reached the edge. Just as Wang Chong was hesitating, the door suddenly creaked open. Behind the 5 alchemists, another middle-aged man wearing green satin walked out. He looked a little strange. He looked outside and immediately walked toward the east side of the street. Unlike the others, he walked very slowly. He looked relaxed and not that nervous. That's him. Seeing the middle-aged man's hand in his sleeve, Wang Chong's mind flashed. He suddenly knew who he was looking for. Liu Zhizhang. This was the alchemist that Wang Chong was looking for. The dragon has 9 sons, each different. Most of the members of the secret alchemist society were extremely vigilant, careful, and vigilant. It was almost impossible to get close to them, let alone make friends with them. However, this kind of thing was not absolute. There would always be some people who could be taken advantage of. This, Liu Zhizhang, was the opportunity that Wang Chong had learned from the alchemist. This alchemist's real name was Zhang Zhongshu. Liu Zhizhang was his nickname. Although he looked normal, everyone in the alchemist society knew that he had 6 fingers on his right hand. When he was young, because he was addicted to gambling, he owed a loan shark and had one of his fingers chopped off. However, because he was born with 6 fingers on his right hand, he still had 5 after one of his fingers was chopped off. Therefore, he looked like an ordinary person. This secret was not known to outsiders, but Liu Zhizhang himself knew. Therefore, when he walked, sat, or lay down, his right hand would be curled up into his sleeve. He did not want others to see it. Chapter 114. Back then, that alchemist had told Wang Chong many interesting anecdotes about the art of alchemy. The reason why Wang Chong paid attention to this Liu Zhizhang was because of something he was about to do a few years later. Due to the fact that life in the royal palace was extremely boring, especially when it came to alchemy, Liu Zhizhang's gambling addiction worsened after he became an alchemist. Eventually, it got out of hand, and a few years later, he owed a sky-high loan. In order to repay the debt, Liu Zhizhang actually lowered the threshold and took the initiative to introduce a magnanimous merchant from the capital into the secret organization of the alchemist. Smuggling alchemist pills from the royal palace and king's residences was supposed to be an extremely secretive matter. No outsider could ever find out about it. However, that magnanimous merchant wasn't someone who could keep a secret. Later on, because of this magnanimous merchant, the matter of the alchemist secretly smuggling pills was finally exposed. In the end, it directly led to the death of this alchemist. From this point of view, this Liu Zhizhang was actually a pitiful person. This was because his future had already been decided if Wang Chong didn't intervene. It's a pity that it isn't a few years later yet. Otherwise, I wouldn't have to go through so much trouble and could easily enter the secret organization of the alchemist. Wang Chong thought to himself as he looked at the slowly walking Liu Zhizhang through the window of the carriage. The secret organization of the alchemist was known for its high vigilance and high threshold, making it difficult to enter. If it was a few years later, when that incident happened, Wang Chong only needed to replace that magnanimous merchant and fork out a sum of money to easily squeeze into the organization, obtaining an endless supply of pills. However, all of this had yet to happen. Liu Zhizhang might not be as easy to talk to as he was in his previous life, and he might not be able to provide such a good opportunity to Wang Chong. But at this moment, Wang Chong did not have much choice. Among all the alchemists, this Liu Zhizhang was undoubtedly the easiest to acquire. If Wang Chong wanted to raise his bone frame to tiger bone rank in a short time, this was his only chance. The earlier he could join the alchemist's secret organization, the earlier Wang Chong could obtain a steady supply of pills. Even if it wasn't for the Herculean force, Wang Chong was determined to get the alchemist's secret organization. The earlier they entered, the earlier they would obtain substantial benefits. Whether or not we can form this alchemist's secret society will depend on this. A thought flashed through Wang Chong's mind. He quickly opened the carriage door and walked out. In the blink of an eye, Wang Chong caught up with Liu Zhizhang. Daoist teacher, this junior pays his respects. In front of Liu Zhizhang, Wang Chong stopped and bowed with a smile. Upon hearing the word Daoist, Six-Fingered Zhang, who was still lazing around a moment ago, felt as though he had been stabbed. In an instant, his face warped in shock. What do you want? Liu Zhizhang seemed to have turned into an entirely different person. His eyes narrowed and his entire body tensed up. He resembled a fully drawn bow that was in a state of charging. He exuded intense hostility and wariness toward Wang Chong, as though he would make a move if Wang Chong were to say a single wrong word. Daoist teacher, Daoist teacher. In the Central Plains, as long as an outsider met an alchemist, they would respectfully address him as Daoist teacher. To Liu Zhizhang, a single sentence from Wang Chong had revealed too much information. Liu Zhizhang's instinctive reaction was that the matter of him secretly smuggling pills from the royal palace and the Wang residence had been exposed. It's indeed hard to get close to these alchemist organizations. Wang Chong's face warped. Of all the alchemists, Liu Zhizhang could be considered as the easiest to deal with. However, upon hearing the word Daoist teacher, his face warped. Just like the other alchemists, he was extremely wary of him, making it hard for him to get close to him. Daoist teacher, there's no need to misunderstand. I am Wang Chong, and I don't have any other intentions. I just wish to request a pill from the alchemist. Wang Chong smiled. How do you know that I am a Daoist teacher? Liu Zhizhang ignored Wang Chong's words and stared at the word Daoist teacher. He really wanted to know how Wang Chong discovered his identity. My nose isn't damaged. How could I not recognize you, Daoist teacher? Wang Chong smiled and made a sniffing gesture. Liu Zhizhang's face changed. He grabbed his sleeves and sniffed hard. Sure enough, he smelled a strong smell of pills. Alchemists had been dealing with alchemy furnaces and pills for a long time, so this smell couldn't escape. I see. Liu Zhizhang felt relieved and his face looked much better. Say no more. I won't concoct pills for you. Six-Fingered Zhang had a cold expression on his face, as if he was 1,000 miles away from him. Realizing that Wang Chong didn't find out that they were secretly peddling pills from the Imperial Palace and Wang residence, Liu Zhizhang wasn't as vigilant as before. After Liu Zhizhang said this, he ignored Wang Chong and got up to leave. Daoist teacher, please wait. Whether you are willing or not, I have a gift for you. Gift? You are just a kid. What gift can you give me? Liu Zhizhang snorted and snorted. Daoist teacher, take a look and you will know. Wang Chong smiled and gestured to the person behind him. Shen Hai carried a brocade box that he had prepared in advance and brought it over. Deliberately mystifying, Liu Zhizhang opened the brocade box and scolded with a face full of disdain. But the next moment, when he saw the golden radiance coming from the brocade box, Liu Zhizhang was stunned and couldn't say a word. Gold? There was at least 2,000 to 3,000 gold taels. Liu Zhizhang stared at Wang Chong in shock, as though this was the first time he had met the other party. 2,000 to 3,000 gold taels wasn't something a child could take out casually. Daoist teacher, this is a small token of my appreciation. I hope that you can accept it. After saying those words, before Six-Fingered Zhang could react, Wang Chong immediately led Shen Hai and Meng Long back to where they came from. Entering the carriage, they disappeared into the streets. Leaving Liu Zhizhang standing on the streets with 2,000 to 3,000 gold taels in his hands, he was stunned speechless. What in the world is going on? Liu Zhizhang stared at the back view of Wang Chong's carriage in bewilderment. He had never seen such a situation before. Without saying anything or receiving anything, he left 2,000 to 3,000 gold taels and left without saying a word. There are weird things every year, but this year, there are especially many. Since someone is giving me gold, do you think that I wouldn't dare to accept it? A hint of greed flashed across Liu Zhizhang's eyes as he kept the gold taels given by Wang Chong. The reason why he risked his life to smuggle pills from the royal palace and the various kings' residences was all for the sake of profit. If someone was giving him gold for free, why wouldn't he accept it? It's been a long time since I went to the gambling den. This amount of gold is more than enough for me to spend. Liu Zhizhang flagged down a carriage and headed straight for the gambling den. Young master, since you wanted to give him gold, why didn't you give him a little more? At the same time, Shenhai looked at his young master with a perplexed expression. The young master had always been extravagant, spending 1,000 gold taels to buy a horse's bones. A few thousand gold taels to 10,000 gold taels meant nothing to him. Previously, for the Hyderabad ores, the young master paid Ablanadin and Arloja an extra 10,000 gold taels. Now that he was facing an alchemist, he shouldn't be so stingy. 2,000 to 3,000 gold taels wasn't his style. I'm willing to give him 10,000 gold taels, but he has to accept it first. Doesn't that mean that we have ulterior motives for him? Wang Chong chuckled. The two of them were stunned for a moment. Wang Chong chuckled and didn't say anything. Liu Zhizhang was a unique group of alchemists, and they were extremely cautious and wary. It wasn't an easy task to infiltrate their ranks. It was fine as long as he left a good impression on them. Otherwise, going too far would be as bad as falling short. Meng Long, the information I wanted you to gather. Did you manage to get it? Wang Chong asked all of a sudden. I got it. Meng Long nodded his head. He flipped open a scroll and passed it over. There are a total of 6 gambling dens in the vicinity of the Falling Jade Pavilion. 3 of them are small, 2 of them are medium, and the last one is the largest. What's the name of the largest gambling den? Wang Chong didn't take the scroll. Golden Sky Great Gambling Den. Meng Long said. Golden Sky Great Gambling Den, Wang Chong frowned. He had some impression of this place. It seemed to be a gambling den controlled by the Gogurians. In his previous life, Wang Chong was extremely curious as to what kind of person could force the esteemed alchemist to such an extent, going against the rules and introducing a wealthy merchant into his organization. If not for some special reason, Liu Zhizhang wouldn't have taken such a huge risk. However, if the other party was the Gogurians, then everything could be explained. The Gogurians were the typical outlaws. They were vicious, aggressive, and fearless. Liu Zhizhang's identity as an alchemist might be effective on others, but it might not be effective on these outlaws. In the circle of scions that Wang Chong used to hang out with, everyone knew that one could go anywhere as long as one didn't go to the wineries, gambling dens, tea houses, and brothels controlled by the Gogurians. It wasn't just because the Gogurians were vicious, aggressive, and unruly. More importantly, they had connections with another fearsome faction in the Tang dynasty, the Gogurian Warrior Organization, or Gogurian Assassin Organization. It was common sense not to get involved with the Gogurians. But clearly, Liu Zhizhang was an alchemist, and he didn't know much about it. As an alchemist in the royal palace and king's residences, he would always choose the most luxurious locations. Without even thinking, Wang Chong was certain that Liu Zhizhang would choose the Golden Sky Great Gambling Den, and it just so happened to be a gambling den controlled by the Gogurians. Shenhai and Meng Long, follow him for the next few days. I will have Ablanadin and Arloja assist you. If he's in danger, save him. No matter what, don't let him get hurt. While contemplating, Wang Chong tapped on the window lightly with his right index finger and said, Also, there's 20,000 gold taels in the carriage. If the situation is urgent and you need money, pass it to the alchemist. If it's insufficient, you can have Ablanadin come to the residence to take more. There's no limit to the amount. Upon hearing that there was no limit to the amount, Shenhai and Meng Long were astonished. They knew that the young master wouldn't fall in love with anyone easily, and those who caught his eye were usually extraordinary. However, they didn't expect that Wang Chong would place such importance on the alchemist. Yes, young master. We'll definitely accomplish our mission. The duo lowered their heads and replied. Bring your tokens with you. Show them when necessary to avoid trouble. Go. Wang Chong waved his hands. Troublesome people were always like magnets that attracted trouble. A gambling addict, an alchemist, and a gambling den controlled by a Gogurian. At this moment, Wang Chong could already see a conflict not too far away. Wang Chong knew that with his cultivation realm, There was no need for him to get involved in this conflict. It was sufficient for Xin Hai, Meng Long, Ablonidin, and Arloja to take his place. Chapter 115. Initially, Wang Chong thought that it would take at least a few days for him to make any progress on Liu Zhizhang's matter. However, Wang Chong underestimated Liu Zhizhang's brazenness on the gambling table as well as the other party's confidence in his identity as an alchemist. That very night, Liu Zhizhang was assaulted. Even though he possessed extraordinary attainments in the way of pill, the higher one's cultivation in the way of pill, the harsher one's life became. As such, Liu Zhizhang became increasingly brazen on the gambling table. That very night, Liu Zhizhang was assaulted by the Gogurians. Those people used some extreme means such as explosives, knockout powder, knockout grenades, and even lime. If not for Xin Hai and Meng Long arriving with Ablonidin and Arloja, Liu Zhizhang would have been stabbed a few times and his hand would have been chopped off. The Gogurians were known for their viciousness and cruelty in the capital. However, this matter was something that Liu Zhizhang asked for. He only had 2,000 to 3,000 gold taels on him, but he actually dared to borrow 20,000 gold taels from the Golden Sky Casino. Adding on the previous debt, he actually owed the Golden Sky Casino more than 50,000 gold taels. His guts sure were plentiful. Liu Zhizhang had borrowed 20,000 gold taels from the casino earlier in the day, and according to the agreement, he would return the debt by 4:45 in the afternoon. However, Lu Zhangji had been drinking in the casino, and he had forgotten about the matter completely. This infuriated the Gogurians. "Have you paid off all the gambling money for him?" Behind the study table, Wang Chong asked. Reporting to young master, according to young master's instructions, we have already paid up for him. After paying up for him, we left. We didn't interact much with him. Xin Hai and Meng Long replied. After helping the other parties so greatly, Lu Zhangji casually gave him 50,000 gold taels without asking for anything at all. This was truly incomprehensible to the both of them. However, this was the young master's decision, so they weren't in a position to comment on it. Very good. From tomorrow onwards, send him 2,000 taels of gold every day. Other than that, don't say anything else. Wang Chong said. Yes, young master. Xin Hai and Meng Long replied. Nearly 50,000 gold taels had been given away, but he had not received anything in return. If it was someone else, they would definitely not do it. However, Wang Chong didn't care at all. In the secret community of alchemists, there was a huge profit to be made. However, the threshold was also unusually high. The customers they sold to were often people who had been around for decades, or even longer. Due to the long period of time, this kind of relationship could be tested. Moreover, the alchemist was extremely cautious when it came to choosing new clients. Often, they might not even choose one in a few decades. It was precisely because of this cautious and strict attitude that the secret group of the alchemist was able to maintain its secrecy outside of the royal palace and the various kings' residences. To Wang Chong, as long as he was able to come into contact with this group, as long as he could squeeze into their group and purchase a steady stream of precious pills, it was no longer important for him to give away the 50,000 gold taels. Given that Liu Zhizhang was still wary of him, it was still too early to talk to him about joining the alchemist group. What Wang Chong was doing now was to continuously give him gold taels. Through this method, he would be able to increase the other party's goodwill toward him. One day, when Liu Zhizhang was no longer wary of him, Wang Chong believed that he would come looking for him. After making the arrangements, Wang Chong continued to cultivate his dragon bone art in peace. Days passed and Wang Chong's strength grew by the day. Even though he hadn't achieved a breakthrough in his root bone, it was becoming denser with each passing day. 3 days passed in a flash. Even though Wang Chong's dragon bone art hadn't progressed much, there was an unexpected change on Xin Hai and Meng Long's side. Young master, Liu Zhizhang seeks an audience with you. This time, he took the initiative to look for us and indicated that he wishes to meet you. Wang Chong was cultivating in the courtyard when Xin Hai and Meng Long suddenly walked over. Oh! Wang Chong's eyes lit up in surprise. Liu Zhizhang seemed to be even more impatient than he had imagined. Let him in. Wang Chong met Liu Zhizhang in his study. Compared to Liu Zhizhang a few days ago, the current Liu Zhizhang didn't seem as aloof, arrogant, and unapproachable as before. However, Wang Chong could sense deep doubt and unease from him. Zhang Zhongshu pays respect to Gongzi. Liu Zhizhang bowed, looking a little uneasy. Honestly speaking, the identity of an alchemist allowed him to make a name for himself anywhere. Thus, most alchemists would be arrogant before others. Just that, Zhang Zhongshu didn't expect the person who pestered him in front of the falling jade pavilion to have such a powerful background. Even though the identity of an alchemist wasn't bad, it was nothing compared to the Wang clan. Hee master, we meet again. Wang Chong chuckled. Glancing at Liu Zhizhang's left hand, Wang Chong saw a massive sword wound protruding from the latter's sleeve. It seemed to be the wound he suffered from the Gogurians not too long ago. Gongzi, don't make fun of me. What master? If I knew that you're Duke Jiu's grandson, I wouldn't dare to slight you. Liu Zhizhang said uneasily. Hee master, you're being too polite. May I know what business you have with me? Wang Chong turned to look at Liu Zhizhang with a smile. Gongzi, you're being too polite. I'm here to thank Gongzi. Gongzi has saved my life and helped me pay off my debt of 50,000 gold taels. I'm deeply grateful for your help. However, if Gongzi wishes to request for a few pills from me, please forgive me for being unable to do so. As for the 50,000 gold taels, I'm unable to pay it off for the time being. However, if Gongzi wants it, I'll try my best to return it to Gongzi. Liu Zhizhang lowered his head uneasily. Who said that I want to request for a few pills from you? Wang Chong chuckled. Isn't that so? Taken aback, Liu Zhizhang abruptly lifted his head in surprise. All along, he thought that the reason why Wang Chong helped him so much was so that he could forge pills for him. As such, he had been feeling uneasy. He was the alchemist of the royal palace. If he were to forge pills for others outside, he would surely be severely punished. Thus, this was the reason why he was feeling uneasy. However, it was rare for a generous person like Wang Chong to give away 50,000 gold taels without asking for the reason. This was something that Liu Zhizhang rarely met. He couldn't bear to part with it just like that. Thus, he decided to meet the Wang family. However, from the looks of it now, the truth was completely different from what he had imagined. Master, pills flow for 1,000 years, cauldron flames burn for 10,000 autumns. I would like to take a look. I wonder if Master can help me take a look? Wang Chong smiled. What? The previously calm Liu Zhizhang's expression changed abruptly. How did you know? Six-fingered Zhang stared at Wang Chong in shock. It was as if the deepest secret in his heart had been seen through. Pills flow for 1,000 autumns, cauldron flames burn for 10,000 autumns. This was a couplet in the royal palace. It was the origin of everything, and also the secret code for the alchemists to incite each other. The secret organization of the alchemist. This was the deepest secret in Liu Zhizhang's heart. He never expected that Wang Chong would be able to see through it. His relationship with Wang Chong had always been as an ordinary alchemist. He had always believed that this was what Wang Chong was thinking, but he hadn't expected Wang Chong to see through him so early on. This made Liu Zhizhang tremble with fear. Master, there's no need to be surprised. If I wanted to leak it, I would have done so long ago. Why would I wait until now? Wang Chong smiled. He picked up the teapot on the table, poured a cup of fragrant tea, and pushed it over. No matter what he did, the secret organization of the alchemist, as long as he mentioned it, it would cause a backlash. The fact that Liu Zhizhang was able to stay here and not rush out was already beyond his expectations. Since Gongzi knows about pills flow for 1,000 autumns, cauldron flames burn for 10,000 autumns, you should know the danger of this matter. Isn't Gongzi afraid of bringing trouble to the family? Liu Zhizhang took a deep breath and raised his head. When he first came in, his face was still cramped, restrained, and uneasy. But when Wang Chong mentioned the words pills flow for 1,000 autumns, cauldron flames burn for 10,000 autumns, his entire person changed, as if this was his true appearance. There was no longer a trace of uneasiness or fear. Hearing Liu Zhizhang's words, Wang Chong immediately became silent. The pills refined in the royal palace and the royal residences had always been a taboo. It was definitely not a good thing to be involved with the alchemist organization that smuggled pills. It was very possible that it would bring a lot of trouble to the Wang family, anger the royal palace, and attract the hostility of the royal princes. For a few pills, it was really not worth it. Under normal circumstances, even if Wang Chong knew that there was such a secret alchemist organization, he would definitely not do it. But Wang Chong was well aware that a calamity was about to descend. In this catastrophe, everything would fall apart. The royal palace, the royal residences, the laws, the family, everything that was precious would be scorched to the ground. In this catastrophe, it was most important to strengthen himself as much as possible and protect others. As for the danger that might arise from being involved with the alchemist organization in the royal palace and the royal residences, it was not within Wang Chong's consideration. I have my own considerations on this matter. Master need not worry too much. Master, please lead me into the sect. Wang Chong raised his head and smiled lightly. This time, it was Liu Zhizhong who was silent. His original intention was to make Wang Chong back off. Unexpectedly, Wang Chong's willpower was even stronger than his. It was as if Wang Chong had made up his mind to enter his group. If it was any other time, Liu Zhizhong would definitely not agree. He would not even consider it. But Wang Chong had once helped him, and he already knew of their existence. Liu Zhizhong could not pretend not to know. Welcome to Immortal Cultivation Audiobooks, your gateway to the mystical world of Xianxia. Dive into legendary tales of martial arts, spiritual growth, and immortal ascension. Here, we bring you full-length English audiobooks of the best Wuxia and Xianxia stories, from young prodigies to ancient sect wars. Perfect for fans of Against the Gods, martial world, and tales of demons and gods.